So here I am, ready for fame, fortune, and maybe a donut. The answer to your problems is standing right in front of you.
What would you give to move again? What would you give to speak again?
We better wash up. My mom hates it when we get bloodstains on stuff.
You're the girls, right? I'm Cynthia, Ronnie's manager. Okay, here's the 411. Ronnie will be ready to see you shortly. First, he has to get his makeup off, take a sauna, have a massage, meditate, get dressed.
And here I am on the cover of this month's Leaders of Tomorrow with the Raja of Malgarway. He's oodles of fun.
So I learned something about you. Stupid men think you are beautiful.
You mean the pharmaceutical sensation that everyone's talking about? I saved the best news for last. I've met a wonderful boy and I'm dropping out of school to marry him and move to the big city. Morning, boys! Don't look at the camera. Just act natural. Come on, dog. Continue to look.
I'm making a latte as we speak, although I should have made it before I called you. But then all of a sudden I was like, I want a latte.
Before we begin, I just want to say I am so happy that we're finally able to have you on the show because, you know, we started this in 2011, and our very first guest was actually one of the very first interviews that James Arnold Taylor ever did online when he first got online. And so the Clone Wars was, you know, in its heyday, and we've been working on getting a lot of the cast in, and for the most part, we've done pretty good. But it's an honor to finally have you on the show.
Oh, that means so much to me, and wow, you know, I love James, man. He's the best.
He's a very inspirational guy.
He's a very inspirational guy. He's a very talented guy, and he's one of those guys who just has love for a lot of people and isn't afraid to share it.
And it seems to me that one reason why the Clone Wars was so good was not just necessarily the writing, but because all the voice cast is they're so, you guys are all so good people and so close together. You guys had a lot of chemistry together, and it really added to the strength of the show by you guys able to work off each other on and off the screen. You know, whether it's at an event or in a game or on the show, you guys were able to work so close together that it really sold the show because the chemistry was all there between pretty much everyone, even if it was someone who's only there for an episode or two.
I know, totally. I 100% agree. It was so much fun. It was like, you know, one of those jobs where you go into a session and you're sitting there and you're just watching everybody going, wow, they're really good. And this is really fun, and I'm so psyched to get to be a part of this. You know, it just like was really one of those joys in my career because exactly what you just said. It's so sad that it went away.
But you did get a lot more seasons of a show than a lot of animated shows get. Even Batman the Animated Series got 4 volumes, and that's considered like one of the pinnacles of animation for many people.
Yeah, but, you know, the thing with Batman is that, like, you know, it's morphed into so many different shows.
Sure, you got Justice League Unlimited, Batman Beyond, and
Brave and the Bold, that one.
Yeah, this keeps on going. But, you know, Clone Wars had 5, well, I guess 6-ish seasons.
Yeah.
It's pretty darn good for an animated show.
I know, it still didn't ever seem like enough, and I was like, if only Disney could have nabbed it up, that would have been delicious. But, you know, they've moved on.
They moved on. So, the first question I have is actually from my brother, who he is one who's kind of like me when I didn't watch all of the original Clone Wars series that was done around Revenge of the Sith. Mostly because I didn't have Cartoon Network, and a 3-minute episode thing was just kind of odd to me.
Mm-hmm.
Other than Toonami, which apparently worked really well for me. So when Clone Wars first started with the movie and so on, Ventress was a character that was kind of like a Ahsoka, which was odd at first, and you had to get used to. You had to really delve into it. And some of them, like Ventress, for example, took a long time to really dig into who she was beyond this assassin. And he just wants to know, how were you able to get so well into the skin of a character that originally was played by Gray?
Gray. Now Gray no longer is Delisle. Gray. What?
Griffin?
Yeah, Gray Griffin now.
I think that's her name now. Yeah. And originally voiced by her, but you were able to get in her skin so well that immediately, upon hearing her, the voice and everything we knew who this was, and a lot of people were able to go. How were you able to get so deep into a character that you weren't originally doing, but stepped in seamlessly?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, with all of my characters, I never go back and listen to. If I didn't even know that someone had ever done Asajj. I thought I actually created her. That's how what a bubble I live in. That's how I'm so bad. I have no idea. And some people know a lot about the whole universe and blah blah blah. I wasn't one of those people. I sort of decided that I was going to create her from my head, and so I had no idea, that Gray had played Asajj before. I didn't even know about that series till after I started doing it, and I never actually watched it because I don't want to be affected by what other people do, because I mean, Gray is so incredibly talented also, and I love her with all of my heart, but I don't, I want to do something that comes from my head and my heart. And so the way I sort of jumped into Asajj was, I just sort of, in the beginning, just sort of created what I thought she was in my head. And I just started from scratch. And then as the script started coming out and the more episodes I did, I sort of got what the writers, felt she was. And then I sort of just, added on to their genius. So I know that's a long-winded answer to your question, but anything I do just sort of comes from the craziness of my brain. I don't have any good way of explaining what happens. I feel like it just happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense, and it just shows how good the direction and the writing of the show was, that even when someone who had really not seen what was done before, the transition was seamless, and it just shows how well established the show was when they started it.
Yeah, right. But they also changed. I think they sort of changed her storyline a bit, or a lot.
Well, she survived. The other one, she literally died in the first season.
Right, exactly. So, and then they also, her backstory and everything. I mean, I think, the more, because in the beginning, I mean, they didn't really know what was happening with her and what she was going to sort of morph into. That's sort of what happens, I think, with any shows, and it shows that last a long time, as you start to get a chance to, dig deeper into background and what that means about who she was. And so that was so amazing for me, because I had always gone into her character sort of feeling like there's got to be some deep, dark, painful stuff in her background that made her the way she was. She, no one's just bad from birth. Well, that's not true. Maybe there are people who are bad from birth, but it's pretty rare. There has to be some sort of, catastrophic event that happens early on in their life that makes them into who they are. And I sort of felt, but I didn't know what that was. So the more we got to know her story and, everything about the Night Sisters and her, and her losing her parents when she was young and all those things, sort of made her who she was. So, but that took a long time for me to learn about those things. But I'd always come from that place that I knew that there was something there, and that's where I started off, making her who she was.
So voicing, someone like Ventress, it took a little while in the show for us to get her background. And as the voice actor, you guys record a year, sometimes more, before the episodes air. So when you finally realize the character has this deep background, you had to wait even longer for anyone to find out. What was your reaction the very first time you found out more of Asajj's story and finally got to do something beyond she's the Sith assassin for Dooku, fight, run away, lose, sometimes win, and you actually got to delve into her character? And then how hard was it to wait that year for people to actually know about it?
Well, like I said, it wasn't hard for me because I'd always gone into the character going, there is some backstory here. She can't just be this badass chick that, fights people and blah, blah, blah. It can't just be about the voice. There's something about her. So in that way, it wasn't hard for me to sort of wait. It was more, it was hard because I didn't want people to just think she was just another bad guy with no depth. that she was multi-layered. And I think, until that happened, there were a lot of people who felt like, oh, it's just another bad guy with like a cool voice and she looks kind of cool and badass and blah, blah, blah. So for me, I thought, you know what, this is so great. They're giving me an opportunity to really, show the world that she's got some depth. That, like we already said, it's pretty rare when you get to have a character evolve over time, at least in an animated series. Difficult it wasn't. More exciting for me than anything.
Okay, so this is from a listener. He says, you got to work with a ton of big voice actors in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and we know you guys got pretty close. What sort of reunion was it like when you go from Star Wars: The Clone Wars and you work with James and others to working with similar or the same people on projects like Ratchet and Clank or other cartoons? What's it like when you have reunions with people that you've worked with for so long on a single show?
Well, it's amazing. I mean, well, first of all, we already talked about the amazing cast, but the thing about the voiceover world is it's pretty small. I mean, there's always like new, younger people coming in, and so it's really fun and exciting because new people get to join the crew. But if you count the amount of voiceover people that are in a lot of projects, you could, there's under 100 people, less than that, way less than that. It's probably like, I would say 60 people who you see all the time on different projects. And so what makes it so exciting is that over the, whatever 20 something years I've been doing this, I get to see all of these amazing people in different projects doing amazing things that are completely different than what I just experienced in. The Clone Wars is amazing because I got to, see all of these people over an extended amount of time on the same project. So that's really great because it feels like family. But like people like Dee, Baker, who's also one of the most amazing, talented, awesome, big-hearted guys you'll ever meet in your life. One of the first projects when I was like in my, the beginnings of my career, like the second project I ever did, which was this show called Mike, Lou, and Og. I got to work with him on that show. So I've known Dee for that long, and every time I get to hang out with him, like on a weekly basis, you get really comfortable, and so you get sad when you're not, together anymore after a show ends. So, for me, it's been like, you just hope that after a show ends that you get to be on another show. You wonder if I'll ever be on another show with that person again, to experience, when you work with somebody like a Dee or a James, or a Gray, or, all these people that we're talking about, it brings your game up to a higher level, So I'm jumping all over the place with your question. I don't.
But we love it. I love it. This is great.
It's like this little world of like insane people who get to be together and just be insane. It's a very different world than, on-camera acting, when you're on a TV show. Because basically, when you're on a TV show, you're pretty much, except for like when your summers are off and stuff like that and you do a movie or whatever, you do a show and then you're stuck in that show. But when you're in the world of voiceover, you can be on a lot of shows. So, you build up these sort of like groups of like families. It's really fun where you get to like go, oh, wow, I didn't know they could do that.
Yeah, and I've seen what it's like when a lot of voice actors are together. Like one of the last Comic-Cons here in Salt Lake, I got to talk to Jess Harnell, Rob Paulson, and Tris McNeil, as well as Dee, who was sitting right next to them, and just you don't know what's going to come out of their mouth because they know each other so well, and you don't know what characters are going to be popping up when they talk because they just have fun, and you can definitely tell, they've all worked together so much that they're comfortable basically doing whatever they want to do, and it's their own little world, and it's awesome to watch it.
It's so awesome. I mean, Jess is such a funny guy. Such a funny guy. And it's funny because, voiceover people, I mean, Jess is like, such a people person. That's why he loves doing cons. He's so good at it. And it's so funny because I love performing, but I get really shy when I'm around a lot of people. I'm good with one-on-one, but like around a lot of people, Jess is he is an amazing guy at those things.
He's the rock star.
He's a rock star.
Literally.
He really is, literally and figuratively. He's just, and just watch. Whenever I sit next to him, whenever I do one of those cons or another kind of work thing like that, it's really hard for me to actually communicate with people because I'm laughing so much. She's so funny.
So speaking of rock stars, this actually leads to a pretty interesting listener question. You got to voice, rather surprisingly, that they utilized this character, Cy Snoodles, who most people know from Jabba's Palace, whether you saw Special Edition or the other one first, performing in Jabba's Palace. But Clone Wars actually gave this character voice, a background, and I guess some sneaky intelligence for how she's able to do things. What instructions did they give you for creating this voice for Cy Snoodles? And you're working with I believe it's Corey Burton who voices I forgot his name.
Yeah.
The Southern Effeminate Hut. This just seems like a really fun episode to work with, and the one that you guys would really have a hard time keeping a straight face. Just the way that these voices that are coming out in this storyline is rather odd.
I love that character. Oh, you just reminded me. It's so funny because sometimes I just sort of, so I don't get sad. I don't even think of characters. So I let them go, and I haven't thought of that character in so long. Nice, Cy Snoodles. Well, that character, I'm trying to think of, my brain it has just died, and I'm thinking it's going to take me 2 seconds to think about who I voiced her. I had this idea that she was sort of like this old time like jazz singer.
What's her name? Who talks like this? My brain is not working. Yeah, why is that? What's her name? Who? Like my brain just died. Okay, I'm gonna think for a second. But anyway, she talks like this, and I was always like, that would be a really sort of funny if I kind of took that. Why is I can't believe, you know what it is? It's just that my latte hasn't
kicked in. But that'll give something for listeners to go hunt down and find.
Anyway, she talks like this, and I always love the way she talks. She talks like this, and I was like, you know what? I need to take her voice and kind of mess around with it, and that's what I think Cy Snoodles would sound like. That she'd sound like this, like, like she just has this, I don't know why, for some reason I thought she would sound like her. And so I just sort of started riffing on that. And then she's this, sing on. So well, she says you and I thought it would look so funny with the character. I don't know what, that's what I'm saying is like, I don't have, like, there are some voice actors who have like a real, like, method of how they get to where they're going. And for me, it's that thing just pop into my head, and I'm like, that's what she sounds like. And so I'm gonna make it sound like this. That's what happened. That character was awesome. I don't know if I ever actually heard. Did you ever hear her singing that? Do you remember that episode? When she's in the club?
I don't remember hearing. I think there was one episode where you hear her sing in Clone Wars.
Right. I actually heard that. I should go and try to find that.
But of course, you hear her singing in Return of the Jedi for, if you watch the cinematic films, but that's a very different Cy Snoodles if you just see Return of the Jedi versus what you saw in Clone Wars.
See, that's the thing. It's like I said before, I don't base a character off of anything I've heard before. So, which is sort of interesting because characters like, that I've done that like a billion women have done before, like Catwoman.
Yeah, that's that's a big one, which actually I was going to hit on next.
Hey, perfect. But so like so that kind of character, there's like all these women that have done it, and so I remembered. I mean, basically, the Catwoman I remembered was being young and watching the Batman series, and the woman that played Catwoman in that was pretty much all I remember hearing. And I didn't even I sort of remembered what she was like in that, what her voice quality was like in that, but I just kind of, I just came from my own, head again in creating her for the Batman series. I think some people liked it and some people didn't.
Yeah, well, because when it comes to Catwoman, there's been tons of people, Gray has played her, Vanessa Marshall has played her, Eliza Dushku, Tress McNeil, a lot of people have voiced her.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Catwoman, it's not how the voice is, it's how the character is, because you have a character that has to be, she's a cat burglar, she's basically a femme fatale, but at the same time, she's not a villain, she's not evil.
No.
She plays with Batman's feelings, but at the same time, she also toys with things. She's playful yet serious, and it's how the character is, how the voice comes out in the personality versus how exactly she sounds, because there's no specific sound. There's an attitude.
Right. And for me, she was very kitty cat like, and very flirty, and But all these women, it's the thing that's really fun about playing characters like that is that you can get you can do like sexy, flirty stuff, but it's like they always have this power behind it, which makes it really fun. That was really fun. Oh, and that character, there was like one episode we did where Tara Gray and I got to sing a song. I remember with that. Did you ever see that episode? There's this great episode, yes. Birds of Prey, I think it was called.
Yes.
That was a fun episode. It's always fun. I mean, it's like, Catwoman singing. That's great.
Well, and when that show came out, Brave and the Bold was a very different feeling Batman show. We had just had, the Bruce Timm stuff had wrapped up. Mm-hmm. This was before the DC animated universe really kicked in with the more darker things. And it was a flashback for people that grew up with a certain style of comics, and it was a very good show for them and very well written, and a nice little break in between serious and very serious.
Right, exactly.
And it's also kind of funny that Will Friedle went from playing Batman, Terry McGinnis, to Blue Beetle.
Right. Yeah.
But it was full of fantastic voice actors.
Yeah.
That's one show that, like, basically if it's a known voice actor, they're on that show, and
right.
Everyone had something, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and you guys did things that you don't see in other Batman shows, you don't see in other superhero shows, and it makes it stand out in a way that really is a benefit to the show.
Yeah, totally. It's funny because I never know with any show that I do whether people are going to like it or not, and sometimes I do a show and I think, wow, this is so good, and then nobody likes it. It dies. And then sometimes I do a show and I go, whoa, that was a fun paycheck. And it's like crazy successful, So you never know.
So you've played, outside Ventress, who you've played in a lot of different mediums.
Yeah.
And, you've done the Lego stuff, which is a blast. I love those Lego ones. That's probably my favorite Star Wars stuff since Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Is the Lego things are they're just so fun.
They're so much fun.
But the character you've probably played the most outside of that is Gamora.
Ah.
Who, a lot of people didn't know before, and now we know because of the James Gunn movie. Has there been a resurgence in people that approach you talking about Gamora or wanting to know more about Gamora since Guardians of the Galaxy came out and suddenly people went, oh?
Yeah, well, what's really interesting is I did do Gamora over all those shows and just assumed that when the new show was coming out that I would be Gamora, which didn't happen. And so Vanessa, who I love with all of my heart, is playing Gamora. And it was interesting because Gamora, when I first did Gamora, it was one of those things where they sort of had an idea of how they wanted me to play her. Sometimes when you audition for the show, they have sort of specific ideas and they sort of describe the voice they kind of give you what they call, like a voice print, like an idea of what they want the voice to sound like. So I kind of would have done her a little differently than I actually how I did her. I would have made her a little bit more to sort of like more modern sounding, which like I guess if you think of like the movie version of Gamora, but I was sort of directed in a different direction. So when the new show came out, I was like, they did go with sort of like more of a modern-ish sound with her, which I thought, damn, I wish I would have, been able to just change it up. But I guess it's easier to just have a different actor so that you can say, okay, now it's just a completely different thing instead of having the same actor do a different voice for Gamora. I don't know. I mean, I never talked to the producers. I've actually worked on that show. They just gave me other parts instead of Gamora. But Gamora was one of those parts that I would have loved to sort of gotten, sort of deeper into what she was about. But I didn't have the chance because even in those other shows that I did, they were sort of like, a couple of episodes here on a show, a few episodes there on a show. You never really got to know what she was about. So I would have liked that. But again, it's like this is the world of voiceover. There's so many different shows and characters are brought back on different shows, and it's a sort of a fun thing to have a different version of that character done by different actors. It's kind of fun for people. There's rare that sometimes there are characters that I mean, in the world of superheroes, you're always going to have repeat characters, so you're always going to have different actors. In the world of like shows that are just created, it's hard to have different actors play things. You can't. It's like no one else could ever be SpongeBob except for Tom. Like that kind of thing. But so again, my long-winded answer to your question. I don't even know if I'm answering your question.
You answered it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically, in a world before Zoe Saldana did Gamora, we had Nika Futterman.
What?
And probably several other people, because if I remember some of those shows, like we've had like Trevor Duvall on, and he was talking, he does Rocket Raccoon, he was talking about how most of those shows, there's literally several people who will play the role, and they'll just, depending on the episode or depending on who has rights at the time, they just literally switch actors around, which seemed kind of odd and expensive, but...
Right, and like, but and it's like, how many different people can you have say, I am Groot,
Now you just have Vin Diesel do it 1,000 times.
But then it is like, yeah. It just depends. I've watched many different large black men play Groot, and they're all amazing. But, like really, it's so funny because, I am Groot. That's all Groot ever says. I am Groot. And it's awesome. It's really funny to be because on those different series, it's like, oh, wait, there's Kevin, Michael Richardson. Oh, wait, there's, it's just like they're all awesome. But yeah.
So you've done a lot of work in TV. You've done a lot of work with animated films, including Open Season, Box Trolls. Actually, my son just watched Open Season this morning. And so this listener just wants to know, when you record for a movie where the budget is usually significantly higher than a TV show, what are the differences, if any, for a voice actor such as yourself compared to, say, an animated TV show where the budget's usually tighter?
What do you mean in terms of like how much I get paid? Or what do you...
I guess that would work. Either pay or just, is the process any different when they have a movie? Do they give you more takes? Do they give you more time? Are they more picky? Do they bring you back in more?
No, with movies, they actually, it's a lot less time. With movies, what they do is, it's pretty rare in a movie where you record with other people. Because now with movies, it's like a lot of movies are made with, on-camera actors. So they give us, lowly voiceover actors, all the other characters where you need to be able to do a lot of voices. So what they do is they like bring you in by yourself, and they get you to do whatever they need you to do in a very short amount of time so they can pay you as little money as possible. Yeah, it's a very, with TV shows, you do a show every week. And I would say a movie unless you're lucky enough to get one of like the main parts, which even if you are doing one of the main parts in a movie, which nowadays usually goes to, like I said, an on-camera actor, you're still recording the whole movie in 1, 2, or 3 sessions.
Wow.
Yep.
So they literally just keep on pushing it.
Is if you're an on-camera actor, you're making, a few $1 million, where voiceover actors, they still only pay us, whatever, the same thing. And I say all of these things not with like any kind of animosity. It's just the way that it is. It's we make such a wonderful, fun living, but it's a completely different thing when you're a non-camera actor. They put it in the like promotional budget that they can have, Ellen DeGeneres play the fish,
Yeah.
and pay her, $20 million.
So that explains why, for example, the other day we were watching DreamWorks movie Home, and literally the cast is like 10 people. 6 of them people, are big names, and the rest do all the other voices.
Right.
And so that's how it is standard, right? For a film, you have like the big names do some of the big voices, and then the voice actors come in to fill all the world up.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And that's for the most part. Occasionally what happens in a movie, like some of the movies, that I've done, is they can't find an on-camera actor or whatever to play certain characters. So and then occasionally there are certain fun characters where they're like, they can't think of an on-camera person, but they want a voiceover person who can, play the Hispanic skunk and would be really funny doing that, or things like that. So occasionally you get to do those fun characters. But a lot of times with movies with voiceover actors is, like you said, the way you described it, we fill in the world with all the other characters, which is cool, Or there are things like the box trolls, where on-camera actors, it isn't necessarily their thing to like create a voice that is a box troll, So I got really lucky and got to be a few box trolls with, a couple of other really awesome, crazy, wacky people who do, one of my favorite things to do is to create voices that don't exist or languages that don't exist, and that's what the box trolls were, these little creatures that had their own voice and language, and, so they call you in and they go, hey, we're trying to figure out what these box trolls sound like. What's your idea of what these box trolls sound like? And so me and Dee and Steve Bloom got to go crazy, amongst other people. But that was like such a fun experience. Anytime I get to create a whole language, I love it.
So there's one video game which I would be remiss if I did not bring up at all. I'm a huge fan of Blizzard strategy games. Not a big fan of WoW, but strategy games. And you got to work with on StarCraft 2 all the parts, which was also voice directed by the legendary Andrea Romano, who doesn't usually do a ton of video games when she voice directs. So, as if I can word this right, StarCraft 2 seems to have been a game that has so much attention given to detail when it comes to the voices. That's why they bring in an Andrea Romano to get it done right. It's a very cinematic, yet challenging strategy game. What was the process for recording a game such as that one, and what's it like working with a legend like Andrea Romano, who, for people who don't know, SpongeBob, Last Airbender, Batman, Justice League. If it's a Ben 10, if it's a huge show, she's probably worked on it.
Oh yeah, she's, that's the thing. There are very few voice directors out there, and it's amazing because, like, probably, there are more new guys coming up now, but in the majority of my working life in this field, there's been like maybe 8 who do everything.
Yeah, and like if I recall, if you do with anime, you have like a Richard Epcar or like a Jeff Nimoy. But when it comes to traditional, Andrea Romano and maybe a couple others.
Yeah, totally, 100%. The StarCraft. I mean, I've been working on StarCraft. Not just that particular game, but like all of them. All of the Blizzard stuff that has, all the Zerg stuff and all the, so that's been like for many years now that I've been I've had the pleasure of working in that world. So yeah, she's one of the directors on that whole series, but they're, Andrea Toyes, and there have been a few others. And it's really interesting because they all have their different styles. Andrea Romano is she is amazing because she knows exactly the language of how to get an actor to do things quickly. Like that's what makes a great director is someone who doesn't want to get in the way of your process, but has a way of coming up with, words that get you to go there right away. She was amazing in that. I love that whole series. It's like, playing those characters. I mean, I can't remember what did I play? Like, the Zerg Queen?
Yeah, Zerg, I know you've played Zerg Queen. What was your first one?
First one was it?
Bunmore Overlords.
You were the Queen and Jessica Hall, one of the crewmen on the ship.
Okay, for the first, yeah, because then after that I went on to play
Zagara,
which was really awesome.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so that was, but your question, like what it was like, I mean, in that, a video game is very different because, you have so many lines, and the sessions are like long sessions. When you do an animated show, you usually can sort of like do the whole show with the cast. Oh, that's the difference too. Okay, so but with movies, you're usually by yourself most of the time. And so you go in and you do like all of your lines, you get it done really quickly. With a show, a TV show, you're usually with a cast. But if you're usually with like all voiceover people, we can get like a session done in probably like an hour and a half. When you do a video game, you always, for the most part, you have these very long sessions because you have thousands of lines. So the thing about an amazing, voiceover director with video games is they have to keep you in that space where you can keep that energy up and keep that character for an extended amount of time for many, many, many lines. And also a lot of like, it's also vocally sometimes a lot harder to do because those characters are usually, in video games, they're either some weird, wacky voice thing that you're doing with your voice, or maybe you're screaming a lot, or maybe you're, so it's a very different process. But that was one of my favorite series to do. Those characters are just awesome. Because again, you have to try to find the humanity or the something in all of those characters that make them not just flat. You know what I mean?
Yes, very much so. And that's one of the strengths of Blizzard's writing when it comes to StarCraft, especially. You have all these different characters, different races. You initially want to side with humans, but everyone has their good and bad sides, and StarCraft 2 especially showed us, the Heart of the Swarm showed us, there's good Zerg, bad Zerg, they aren't all monsters, and showed us really what it's like to be inside these societies, and it's not as black and white as it seemed, and that's a really good strength for a game.
Oh, totally. And all those guys all the Blizzard people, they're so invested. Every single person who works on those games is just like, that's their world, and it's so obvious. They're just the way they can. That's the thing. Okay, so when you're in a session, usually there's like the writer is in there as well as the director. So it's not just the director who's directing. The director's like sitting next to the writer, and the writer. The reason they want to make sure that, like, occasionally you'll have a writer directing the session. But a lot of times they don't do that because they feel that they don't have the language that an actor-director could have with the actor, And so, But it really is the two of them directing together most of the time. So those guys, like the Blizzard writers and stuff, are just, they know everything. They see it, they feel it, and it's really, really interesting, even more so than a lot of TV shows that I've worked on with the characters. They know these characters. They see them and they feel them in their head, and they've played them, So it's really, really cool.
So, one last question about this one, then we have 2 listener questions, and then we'll wrap. So when it comes to, a lot of people have seen what movie directors do, faster, more intense, move over there, raise your voice here, the different instructions that they'll give on set, as blocking. But when it comes to a voice director, how do they usually give instruction? Is it usually, louder here, softer, a little more nasally? Is it more like how your voice is coming out, or is it more of like speed or inflections?
No, so this is what's really interesting, and this is like, for anybody who wants to do voiceover, and I think that I know that when Dee talks to people who are wanting to get into voiceover and stuff, he always stresses the fact that, voiceover, even though it's about voice, is still about acting. And so it's rare when a director is going to give you some kind of like, make it more nasally or make it louder or make it any of those things, because if you've been given the part, you've already sort of created the sound of the character. And so they don't really mess with that. What a voice director does is very similar to on-camera acting, is if they feel that you're sort of like coming from a place that isn't the right motivation, they give hints to that. A lot of, I'm one of those people that when I'm getting directed, I don't mind if someone gives me a line reading, because occasionally you go into a session and you're just having one of those days where there's a line and for some reason it always comes out wrong. And so sometimes I enjoy when a director, especially if they're a really good director, hears it in their head and they just shoot it out to me, because then I'm like, oh, that's the way it is. So in terms of like rhythm or whatever, or an emphasis on a word, that occasionally happens and I enjoy that. Although there are plenty of voiceover actors who are offended by directors that give them line readings. And I get that too. I understand that. I mean, for me, sometimes if I'm just having one of those days, I enjoy hearing where the inflection should be and things like that. But most of the time, a really good director is going to say, actually, I'm just going to stop myself there, because there isn't most of the time. The thing about most of the voice actors that I work with is there's very little directing that needs to be done. You know what I mean? Like once they give you the sort of motivation of the scene or of that kind of line, with video games, you kind of, sometimes the director will say, this is what the line was before, and this is just what just happened, or this battle's going on, or blah, blah, blah. That's the kind of direction that happens. And they might say something like, you know what, I need you to sound a little bit more like you're in battle. That kind of direction. When you're doing a TV show, it's usually like, you usually know the character so well that they don't have to say much except, what, can you speed up that line? Or I think they need to sound a little sadder, or they, like that kind of stuff. It's really good directors are saying very little, but they're saying exactly what they need to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense.
Okay, good.
So we have 2 listener questions, and then we'll do our wrap. So this one says, you've been in a lot of projects.
Yeah.
And we know when it comes to animation, video games, and so on, sometimes when you record stuff, when you see it on screen, it's rather odd or darker or different than you've expected. You've worked on stuff like Dead Space. You've worked in several TV shows and animations that are rather odd, according to this person. I just want to know, have you ever been surprised when you see your final product on the screen and go, whoa, I did that?
I'm always surprised. It's so awesome. I mean, look, the truth is that we get the best part of this whole thing. I mean, that's why we can never, ever complain, because, every single person who works on any of these projects, whether it's a movie or a TV show or a video game, has been working on it for years. And we get to come in and, do the silly part. And so when I see the final product, I am always surprised. I've never not been surprised. it's not like I think with on camera where, you know, there are actors who are like, oh, the editing really changes. You know, they do a bunch of takes and then the editor sort of decides how it's going to be. So sometimes, you know, you'll see yourself on camera and go, whoa, I don't like that. That was like, you know, seemed like really bad acting. But it doesn't happen with animation like that. I mean, yes, but it's still, I don't know. I mean, it's always joyous for me. Do I always love what I did? I mean, a lot of times I think I suck. The truth is that I'd like to see an episode or a snippet from something, but I don't watch my own stuff. Cause rarely do I ever think I'm good enough. And
that seems rather common. Like even I remember one of the earliest interviews we had was Jennifer Hale, and she's, you know, like, it was right when Mass Effect came out. People were like, yay, you're amazing. And she's like, I don't watch it. I can't stand to watch my stuff ever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it seems rather common because you get, even when I do stuff like this, when I have to listen to it and edit it, I'm like, oh no, cut my voice. I don't want to be in there. But it happens.
Yeah.
When you hear yourself.
You're right, because, you know, it's like you can never be good enough. But that's the beauty of it, is that if you thought you were good enough, then maybe it just might, you know, it's what keeps me driven to get better, to keep getting better, to do, you know. So, you know, so I guess in a way I'm glad that I never think I'm good enough, you know. But I say that with, you know, I say that, you know, not with like some sense of like false modesty. I say it because, you know, it's what drives me to keep getting better and better and better and better. And that's what's amazing about voiceovers. You can keep getting better and better, and you get all these opportunities to, you know, play a little boy or play the evil chick, or, you know, all these opportunities that you could never do with on camera because you're stuck in that one mold that they put you in.
Since you've done so many voices, what is an example of a really challenging voice for you that you had to do, and what made it so challenging? Wow.
Gosh. You'd think I'd have a good answer for that. You know, it's funny because, like, they're all challenging and then they're not challenging. It's like I'd say they're all challenging and then they're not challenging at all, because it's like, you know, when you're a super freaky freak and you come up with some character, then all of a sudden you just become that character, and then, you know, you hope, I don't know, and then you just are that character. I know, does that sound wacky? It's like, you know, when I try to just be that character, and then it no longer is challenging because I just am that character.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I do a lot of accents, and there have been like a few times where I put myself into a situation where, you know, there were accents that I really sucked at, and those were kind of challenging. Like, I definitely can't do Australian. Some people are amazing at that, the sort of Australian and New Zealand stuff, things like that. But that's pretty rare, because I'll usually pass on things where I think that I'm going to suck, because I don't want anyone to have to endure that. But in terms of challenging, I mean, every single character is challenging in its way, because, you know, you just hope that it's good enough, that it comes across as real, that you know, that they're, whatever that character is, you know, I mean, it depends on the day. I mean, I definitely go into sessions someday and I just go, oh my God, they're never going to hire me again, you know? And then I'll have a week where I go like, oh, okay, like, I understand why they're hiring me. This has been, you know, 25 years of that.
So this is the last listener question.
Yeah.
You said, you and Courtney Taylor are my two favorite voice actresses, and you're both very similar in voice, in roles, and in characters. Have you two ever been able to work together in one project?
You know, I think we've been on projects together, but never where we were in the same room. Isn't that weird?
That is weird. And I didn't make that connection, but now that he says it, you two are very similar in voice. And actually, we've had her on the show, too. And you guys have similar in personality, too.
It's funny. Yeah, because, I mean, I know... I really don't know Courtney. And that's so strange. because I mean, I know her, but I don't know her. You know what I mean? And so it's funny because I know we've been on some of the same projects, but we've never actually been in a room together. I don't think. If I'm thinking, if anyone can think of a room that we've been in together.
Apparently, you guys work together on Blizzard projects.
Yeah, but
StarCraft 2, but that's all alone, isn't it?
We've been on plenty of projects, the same projects, but we've never been in the same room together. Isn't that crazy? Where, like, if you think of other, voiceover chickadees, I mean, I've probably been in a room with almost all of them, many, many, many times. So that's interesting, but then there's also like, there's certain voice actors who do like the majority of what they do are games. And then in which case you usually work by yourself. And then there's voiceover actors. There's like, some of us that, of the majority, or I'd even say majority, but like a lot of what we do are, television. And so you end up working with the same people a lot,
Yeah.
Right.
And, as you said, it's not a very big world. Like, we've had, I think you're number 48 for voice actors on the show.
Yeah.
And, I look at there's so many that have been done, and there's still some pretty big ones to go. There's like a Kevin Conroy. I do terrible things to get Kevin Conroy or Mark Hamill on the show. But, there's some of the bigger ones that remain. But there's not that many of you, and so you guys know each other very well. And it's kind of amazing that you two have never worked together, but it makes sense. She does a lot of video games, and that's what...
And I think that's what she mostly does, right? But then if you talk to, like, any of the, like, TV show people like Gray or Tara or, Kat Susie or, like anybody that is like on a TV show who works for Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network or Disney or any of those guys. It's like I've worked with all of them over many, many years. And so those guys, because you are, you record together.
Yeah.
So that's,
and then you have the entire other group in Texas, like with Funimation and like Christopher Sabat and so on, who do their own thing, and they don't interact usually with the other TV shows as well because they do their dubbing and the anime style.
Right. And so like I don't, the anime is such a different world, and I've done some anime stuff, but very little. And so most people that I know do anime that's a lot of what they do. But anime is it's a whole other thing. Anime is
totally new challenge.
a completely different thing, and you're recording afterwards. So that's a very different thing. So you're recording to basically you have to record in a way where it's not necessarily the rhythm in which you do it.
And not always the same words either. Same intent, but it's not even. Sometimes it's not even the same script that they had in Japan because you have to change it for your audience, and it
has to fit into a time. So everything is done to time code, which sucks. So I have I've turned down a lot of anime projects, even though some of them are really beautiful and wonderful, because not only it's like so difficult in its way, and also you can't I feel like some of those things I haven't been able to. Like those things I feel impede my ability to do a really good performance. And also they pay a lot less money for a lot more work. I know I'm being completely brutally honest, but it's just that's really the truth. Anime and it's so unfair because it's like all my friends who are heavy into anime, kind of, have suffered because of that. It's very time consuming. And they have to put a lot of work into it. And to get a good performance is really difficult because, again, like you have to, you're limited to the time code. You have to say everything exactly within that time code.
And, yeah. And
when you a character, you want to come up with your own rhythm, That makes a huge difference. And so, like I really commend. But I hope one day that those who, do anime and stuff will get, compensated, as they should, which I don't think they do.
Yeah. Well, we learned from Jeff Nimoy that the last time they got a pay raise was 1999.
Yeah.
When he did it. And I was like, well, It's about time, especially now that there's a whole lot more happening, a whole lot more dubbing happening, and
yeah, it makes no sense to me. It's like dubbing is so difficult, and yet you get paid so much less money. And I'm not, I'm so appreciative of like my life and making a living and what I love that I don't like starting fights, but there are plenty of really wonderful voice actors who are willing to go to fight for voice actors, and I really appreciate them. That's one of those things that I think needs to be dealt with. And until that happens, I kind of haven't done as much as maybe I would normally do.
Well, let's hope it happens soon, so the Crispin Freemans and Christopher Sabat's of the world can really be recognized and compensated for all the great stuff they do.
Absolutely, I agree.
So we're gonna wrap this up. So we have the final question we're gonna ask, and then I have a bumper request at the end, so we can put this on this week's episode as a bumper to advertise it for next week.
All right.
Okay. So the final question we ask everyone is, we're gonna give you the soapbox to promote, any future projects that you can actually talk about. Anything that's coming out soon, where people can talk to you, your website, and stuff like that. So we're going to give you the soapbox to promote yourself and projects to the fans, or any appearances you might have coming up.
Oh, wow. How exciting. I wasn't ready for this. I'm so bad in the soapbox, but I'm going to throw out a few things now that I get the opportunity. Let's see. Well, I've got a new show coming out on Nickelodeon called The Loud House, which is awesome. And that should be coming out in the next few months. I've got a show on Netflix that is based off the movie Home. That's going to be coming out sometime soon on Netflix. And then I've got, we just started recording a bunch of shows for an Amazon series that I'm doing that's called Lost in Oz. That's going to be amazing. And I'm not exactly sure when that's coming out, but that is like one of my favorite new shows that I've been doing. That is really, really fun and a different take on the whole Wizard of Oz thing. And I think those are the ones I'm allowed to talk about at the moment. What else? Anyway, so yeah, watch those, please. And what else am I supposed to beg?
What you can any appearances you might have, your website, social media, if you want people stalking or finding you.
Yeah. Well, no, I do have a website that I just put up, a new website that I just put up. I kind of have to work on it and make it add some stuff, and I'm pretty lame with that stuff. But you should definitely check it out. It's kind of interesting and funny in its way. And that's NikaFutterman.com. Yeah, I'm like one of those lame-o bad social media people, but you can find me everywhere. You can tweet me, and I don't always get back right away, but I will definitely get back to you, when I check it every 2 weeks.
Thank you so much. So what we'd like at the end is a bumper to help advertise, maybe two, where you basically just saying, or you can do it in character, since I know it's a lot of fun to do that. Something along the lines of, hey, this is Nika Futterman. I do the voices of insert characters, and you can listen to me on Bombad Radio, or oh gosh, what was one of the ones who did it recently? I know we had I just forgot his name. He's in Invader Zim, but he did his stuff in character recently, and as said, he threatened us by dropping out Zim, and so as a bumper saying, I'm so and so, and you can listen to me on Bombad Radio, just so we can plug that in at the end.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Okay. So I have to. I'm so crappy at this stuff. Remembering all my characters in the right moment when I should. All right, let's see. I guess. All right. I have to think of characters I want to spout out. Who should I say? I don't know what people.
Ventress would probably be a good one, or Sice Noodles. Well, those are big ones people would know. Well, we've talked about Gamora. We've talked about your stuff in StarCraft.
Zagara.
Yes.
All right. Let me see here. All right. And so I don't. Oh, I could add a little chum in there. We didn't talk about any of my boy characters. Those were what got me on the.
Took me a while to realize that most of the boys in anime are played by women.
Yeah.
I think I learned with Dragon Ball Z. I'm like, oh no, that's a girl.
It's a girl. Yeah. Yes. All right. Okay. So wait, what do you want me to say?
There's something along the lines of, hey, this is Nika Futterman. I do the voices of so and so, and you can listen to me on Bombad Radio.
Oh yeah, okay. All right. Hello everyone. This is Nika Futterman. I do the voice of Ventress, Size Noodles, Chum Chum, and Zagara. You can listen to me on Bombad Radio. Coming soon to your ears.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for giving us so much of your time, and we look forward to hearing your projects in the future, because you're definitely one that I followed for quite a while, and look forward to following you more in the future.
Oh, well, that means so much to me, and sorry my brain isn't exactly, on point this morning.
Well, it happens. I mean, some people, like, for example, when I've talked to Dee, he doesn't know which character is going to come out when he talks sometimes, or what noise will come out of his mouth.
He's really good. So good at interviews.
He's a fun one, but this has been an honor, and I love it. Thank you so much for allowing this to happen, and I look forward to hearing the fan reaction next week when it goes on the air.
Thank you. Have a great day.